Welcome to the American Airpower Museum. In 2000, the museum opened in the former Republic Aircraft Company hangar at Republic Airport. Built in 1941 at the start of World War II, it was the final assembly plant of almost 10,000 P-47 Thunderbolt fighter planes that were then flown to their Army Air Forces assignments. Now, as a museum, it has a collection of planes from pre-World War II to the recent Gulf Wars, along with related displays, exhibits, and programs. It is truly a living history museum where many of these planes still fly. The following slides present some of the museum's highlights. But first, a look at the Republic Aircraft Factory as it appeared at Republic Airport in 1942. Note the camouflaged roofs. There was a concern at the time of German air raids. Also, note the future museum location. The museum's Mitchell bomber, built in 1940, is the oldest B-25 still flying. It was General Hap Arnold's plane during World War II and nicknamed Mishap. The B-25 was one of the deadliest and most effective weapons in the Army Air Force, fighting in almost all combat theaters. The 85-year-old Mishap still regularly flies at regional air shows. The museum has a model of the aircraft carrier USS Hornet with 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers on board. These land-based planes took off from the carrier for a surprise raid of Japan on April 18, 1942. Led by Jimmy Doolittle, it took place just 4 months after Pearl Harbor. This is an illustration of the B-25 bombing raid of Japan. The museum's Grumman Avenger is the same type plane former President George H.W. Bush flew during World War II. These planes were equipped with a single one-ton torpedo or an equivalent payload of bombs. It was an effective submarine killer and the most widely used torpedo bomber of World War II. George Bush was a 17-year-old senior preparing to enter Yale when Pearl Harbor was attacked. However, shortly after graduation, he joined the U.S. Navy to become a naval aviator. He learned to fly Grumman Avenger torpedo bombers and was assigned to fly from the light aircraft carrier USS San Jacinto, where he made 58 combat missions fighting Japanese forces in the Pacific. On September 2, 1944, Bush was shot down on a bombing mission. Although his 2 crewmen died, Bush managed to successfully bail out and was picked up by the American submarine USS Finback. Bush was brought aboard the Finback, where he remained for 29 days as it continued its patrol. During that time, the submarine sank 2 ships, tracked and attacked convoys, and survived depth charges from Japanese ships. Bush eventually returned to the U.S. a national hero, entered politics, and in 1989 became 41st president of this country. A few years ago, when the museum's Avenger was at an air show that Bush was attending, he came by to admire the plane and signed his name on the fuselage. Here is the museum's C-47 Skytrain. During the war, these planes were used for paratrooper jumps, troop transports, glider towing, and military cargo parachute drops. An illustration of the D-Day paratrooper jump is shown here. On the night before the Normandy invasion, 13,000 paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions jumped behind enemy lines from 800 C-47 Skytrains to support the invasion. Here is the museum poster promoting its D-Day reenactment program. It includes a video providing additional information on airborne operations. The museum's C-47 can be entered and is configured for the paratrooper operation in the D-Day reenactment program. After a pre-flight briefing and receiving a field jacket and helmet, reenactment participants board the museum's plane for a short flight and simulated jump. The inset shows an actual operation. A diorama of an 8th Air Force bombing mission is on display here. During World War II, the 8th Air Force conducted extensive bombing missions from England of German-occupied Europe. The museum's simulated bomber represents the B-24 Liberator and B-17 Flying Fortress bombers shown in the insets. Entering the bomber, you see the waist guns, yellow oxygen tanks, and cockpit entrance. The waist gun is preparing to fire against an enemy plane. Heavy aircraft losses occurred during bombing missions. The open gun ports and 25,000-foot altitude resulted in temperatures 30 degrees below zero. Look forward into the cockpit, sit in the pilot's seat, and imagine flying through a field of exploding anti-aircraft fire. The bombardier/nose gunner is located here in the nose. The museum's P-51 Mustang was one of the top fighter planes in World War II. Bomber losses were significantly reduced when escorted by these planes. The Tuskegee display includes a full-size mock-up of a red-tailed P-51 Mustang, along with the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, the first black World War II U.S. Air Force pilots. Here is an illustration of red-tailed Mustangs escorting B-24s on a bombing mission. The flight simulator is a realistic representation of a twin-engine Cessna aircraft. The graphics are of Long Island and include Republic Airport and the museum's hangar. This is inside the simulator cockpit, showing the fully operational flying instruments. Here is a view of a simulator landing approach. Realistic graphics helps create the illusion of actual flying. These have been highlights of the American Airpower Museum. The museum preserves, displays, and flies operational and static examples of our nation's legendary aircraft. And the collection includes related displays, exhibits, and event programs. This setting allows the public to be immersed in the history of aviation as they watch these planes roar to life and take to the skies over Long Island.